Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. I'm Morgan, and today I am talking about tarot without the bullshit. Yes, because I have been reading tarot now for 20 years. No, not quite. About 15 years, I would say. Yeah, about 15 years ago, I taught myself how to read tarot. And over the years, there's been a lot of bullshit about the tarot. So I'm going to lay it straight for you as far as like how I started learning tarot, how long it was between me learning tarot and reading tarot professionally, like quote unquote professionally. And a lot of, I'm not here to like talk about the bullshit in the tarot community, but what I'm going to do is through my journey with tarot, and I'm going to be giving you all tips. I'm going to shed some light on my opinions when it comes to certain things within the tarot community and within tarot reading as well. Okay, so this topic recently came up in Sacred Space this week, which is the sacred space I do within the Inked Spirit Coven. And I realized in talking with this virtual group, because we gather on Zoom, this virtual group of witches about tarot reading, that there are some differences in the way that I read tarot or how I ventured into tarot reading that is a little bit different than a lot of other witches. And not only that, but I have some thoughts about tarot and how I read tarot and that were different than what is being taught, I guess, traditionally online or in books too. So yeah, I realized too, that while I have done readings for you all here on the podcast, I have never done an episode just flat out on tarot. So that is why I wanted to talk about it today. So I'm going to talk about how I read tarot, some basic tarot tips, such as shuffling, what to do with reversed images, a couple of other things, but you have to understand this is all from my standpoint. Okay, this is all my opinion. This is not the holy grail of tarot, and I'm not talking about tarot today as far as like, this is not a tarot 101 class. Okay, I'm not going to talk to you about the different arcana, the major arcana, the minor arcana, the different suits, what the cards mean. I'm not doing any of that. Okay, we're going to cut straight through to, if you are interested in reading tarot for yourself or professionally, I'm cutting through the bullshit for you all today. Okay. The only beginner stuff that I am going to cover today is going to be the tarot deck itself. There's even history behind tarot. It's fun. It's been around since like the 1400s. But the tarot deck itself is a 78 card deck with a major arcana, which is 22 cards, I believe. And then the minor arcana, which is split up into 4 suits. Generally speaking, the suits are cups, swords, wands, and pentacles. Depending on the artwork or who designed the tarot deck, it might be slightly different. But each of the 4 minor arcana suits corresponds to an element. Okay? That is Tarot 101. That's all I'm going to do as far as Tarot 101 today. If you want to learn more about tarot, by all means, Google. If you want to learn more about tarot from me, then you can join the Inked Spirit Coven. We did Tarot 101. It's in the lesson archives, or if you are an Inked Spirit member listening, it's in the lesson archives. I believe it was July of 2022. Don't hold me on that. Hold me to that. But it is literally a Tarot 101 class. And then this year in the Witch's Grimoire in 2025, I want to say it's in the fall, we're going to be doing Tarot Magick coming up here soon. But that is going to be how to use tarot cards for stuff other than reading. So that's what Tarot Magic is going to be about, but that's coming up this year. But anyway, I'm going to probably do that shameless plug at the end as well, because the Tarot 101 class helped a lot of my Inked Spirit Coven members. It helped them reframe how to look at tarot, and it made tarot reading easier for them. And some of the tips I'm going to give you all today. Okay. So just to give you a little bit of my background, I didn't listen to the whole lesson or to the whole episode before I did this episode. But episode 120 is my psychic journey. And I had to have told about reading tarot in that, and my journey with tarot reading, but I don't know to what extent I talked about it. So when I owned my brick and mortar store, in South Carolina from 2006-ish to 2010, 2011-ish, somewhere in there. Okay. I got bored one day. Okay. And I had just gotten a shipment of tarot books and tarot decks. And every time that I would get a shipment of tarot decks in, I would go through them, and there was never one, like I would look at them, I'd open them, I'd be like, I don't understand this at all. I don't understand this. And there's 78 cards. So it's very overwhelming. It honestly is overwhelming, because you're like, there's no way I'm going to memorize all these. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But I got in this book, Tarot for Beginners. I think that's the one I started with, and I started reading it, but then I got in the Spiral Tarot deck, and I actually have it here. So if you are watching on YouTube, you're going to get small little show and tells today. If you're like listening to this on Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, the show and tells over on YouTube. This is the exact deck that I got in. It's the Spiral Tarot deck. So this is the exact deck that I got in 20 years ago. No, not quite 20 years ago. A little less than 20 years ago. And I opened it up to sell in the store, and I looked at the artwork, and I just all of a sudden got it. I understood everything. Okay. So I studied the cards for about 2 weeks. And by studied the cards, I looked at the artwork on the card, asked myself, what does this artwork say to me? And then looked up in the little book that comes with it and said, oh, cool, I got that one right. And cool, got that one right too. Oh, cool. Because I understood the artwork. And that was it. About 2 weeks of quote unquote learning tarot. And I started charging $25 in my store for it. A lot of people say, what the hell, like 2 weeks? Yes, my journey was 2 weeks of studying tarot. And it wasn't something like I did it once and then, like the more you read tarot, the more you understand it, But I only charged $25. This would have been back in, like 2008, 2007, 2008. And that's how I got started. But it wasn't until honestly, I did the Tarot 101 class for the Inked Spirit Coven. And like I said, I think that was about 3 years ago that I dived down. Like I teach what I know in the Inked Spirit Coven, but I also do research. I don't expect them to just take my word for everything, and there are gaps. Like here it was, I taught myself how to read tarot, 15 years ago, I taught myself how to read tarot. And how I did it was not quote unquote by the book. So I do research for all the lessons as well. But when I have to sit down and create a lesson and actually put into words on paper what I do in my practice, that's when I guess the revelations hit, because like when you go and you're doing something for 15 years, you're just doing it. You're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I just do this. And then somebody goes, how? And you're like, oh, you want me to explain how I do it? Well, shit. All right. So it wasn't until I created the lesson, the Tarot 101, that I realized, and this has probably been said, and I know it's been said in probably every tarot book out there, every lesson, if you've ever taken a class, everything, it's probably been said. But it took me having to write out my stuff to realize, the first thing, this is the most important thing, and I cannot stress this enough if you are going to get into reading tarot, okay? The cards do not give you the message. The cards do not give you the message. The messages are coming from you. They are coming from your intuition, your higher self, your guides, whatever you want to call it, okay? The tarot cards are a tool. They act as a doorway that opens up the flow of your intuition, of your psychic abilities, so that that message can flow into you. Okay? And I cannot stress that enough. Okay? That is the most important thing about tarot, is the cards are not giving you the messages. The messages are coming from you. And the tools, the tarot cards are just tools. Okay? So this is why choosing the right tarot deck for you is the most important step of reading tarot. Okay? If you are trying to read the basic Rider-Waite tarot, which is the typical pictures that we see when you see tarot deck, and you don't get it. Okay? And you're like, fuck this, I'm just not going to read tarot because I don't get it. Then find a different deck. Okay? I ran a witchcraft store, a brick and mortar store. I got in shipments of tarot cards probably once a month. And every time I got them in, I popped one open, quote unquote, for display, but it wasn't. It was because I wanted to go through them because I wanted to read tarot. And so many tarot decks have gorgeous artwork. I can't read a single fucking one of them. In fact, another fun little thing about being here on YouTube with me, if you are watching the video, I don't know if I can move to the side. Yes, this shelf is all tarot decks, tarot and oracle decks, okay? And then my family is one of those families, sorry if I got really low there, that when I first started reading tarot, that was what I got every Christmas from every family member, was a new tarot deck. So I have right here the zombie tarot. It's gorgeous. I fucking love it. Can't read a damn card on it. The artwork, I don't get it. It's beautiful though. See, and that's the thing. So over 20 years or 15 years of reading tarot, now I know what the cards mean, But here we have a Knight of Wands who's just like a half zombie guy on a horse. I don't fucking know what that means. I don't know what that means. I would have to pull up the Knight of Wands in my spiral tarot deck, and I'd be like, oh, I can tell you what that means. The Queen of Swords right here is like an old lady in a chair with a gun. I just know this as the bitch card. It is so funny because that was another thing I was going to talk about eventually, was my interpretation or the way I memorized some of the cards, or the way I learned some of the cards. And this is the bitch card. That's just what I call it. And it's just so funny that it's an old lady with a semi-automatic weapon. Anyway, gorgeous deck. I love it. And once you get into tarot, you will start collecting decks. It's just a habit. It's like an addiction. You see the artwork, you're like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Can you read it? I don't know. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I just want to pull another one real quick because I love this one too. This is the Housewives Tarot. My sister got me this one year. This is 50s and 60s housewives in it. I love it. It's even done on the inside like a little recipe book. Love it. A little little recipe box. Let's just pull one randomly. Can't read the shit out of these either. So right here, the Three of Swords is like a little cake with 3 cake servers going through it. That's beautiful. I know the Three of Swords is feeling like you've been stabbed in the heart. I know that because I did memorize. Just doing this for 15 years, you kind of learn a thing or two. Here's the Six of Wands, but it's just like a bunch of housewives tools. like a mop and broom and all that just kind of floating around. I don't fucking know what that means. I don't know what that artwork means. This says the major arcana up here. Let me see. Wheel of Fortune's a roulette wheel. That's kind of lazy. The Hanged Man, she's got a guy on a clothesline. It's cute. The artwork is cute. Can't read them. Not accurately, at least. They don't do anything for me. They don't open up that passageway. So there's a fun little tangent. This episode might go long because of that tangent, but whatever. Show and tell for those on YouTube. Choosing the right tarot deck is the most important step of tarot readings. The minute that you find one with artwork, you don't have to know a single, you don't have to know a single meaning of the card. The card will tell you its meaning, okay? The card will inspire you and open up that doorway to the message that the card has, okay? So you're going off of artwork. You're going off of how does the artwork make you feel? What inspiration do you get from that artwork? And that's the most important. That is why choosing a tarot deck is so important. So if you are currently reading a tarot deck that you do not understand, and no matter how much you read a book about the meaning, it just doesn't get it, you do not have the right card or the right tarot deck for yourself. You do not have it, okay? And that was why when I was teaching myself tarot, I didn't look in a book for the meaning and then apply it to the card. I looked at the card and saw what the artwork inspired from me. And I opened myself up and then I checked the answer in the book. So that's how I taught myself tarot, was backwards. But it starts with the artwork. It does not start with the meaning of the card. Okay? So I hate to say this, and this is where the whole thing about tarot without the bullshit. I'm just going to say it. If you are simply memorizing the card out of a book, then you are not reading tarot. And I'm sorry to bring that to your attention, okay? But it is the truth, okay? You are not doing an intuitive reading. You are simply regurgitating something that you have memorized. And let me tell you, you have spent a lot of time memorizing something and you've taken the psychic ability out of it. And that's no fun, okay? Tarot is not meant to be memorized and regurgitated. It is a reading. It is a journey. Okay, the cards that you pull tell a story, and you cannot tell an accurate story. You cannot tell all of a story if you are just memorizing the card out of a book and then regurgitating that. You have more connection and more messages can come through from using the cards as tools to open up your intuitive pathways rather than just reciting what you read in a book. Plus, excuse me, I've got to flip my notebook. If you aren't open, how can you see connections between cards and information? Okay, there is so much more information in a tarot reading than just the cards that were pulled. You can connect them in different ways, and I'll get to that. I think I'll get to that today. Yeah, I'll get to that today. I had to make sure because I don't know what I was going to be talking about here and then on my Patreon. And then if you're doing a reading for another person and they have questions, how are you supposed to answer them? Because if you're just simply regurgitating, there's no feeling, there's no open pathway, there's no intuition. You're taking the psychic out of it. And I mean, that's not an intuitive reading. That's just regurgitating the meaning of a tarot deck or a tarot card. And honestly, anybody can do that. Okay. So you have to keep in mind, please keep in mind when reading tarot, and this is any form of divination, the message is from you. The messages are coming from you, your intuition, your guides, your open pathway, your higher self, however you want to call, like whatever you want to call it. The messages are coming from you. You are just using tarot or pendulum or a scrying mirror or runes or whatever, you're just using those as almost like triggers. Like you have the cards in front of you and you open yourself up and you're like, okay, so I see this card. So that, I'm getting a really great, amazing reading of, overall vibe for this reading. There's a lot of positive cards. Or you're like, oh shit, everything's reversed. What the hell's going on in your life? Do you know what I mean? So if you're just reading and regurgitating, you don't get that. You don't get that full picture. Okay. So that is the main thing. I cannot stress enough. Picking your tarot deck, with the artwork that inspires, that is the key. Okay. And that is how I taught myself very quickly how to read tarot. Okay. And it was very quickly because the artwork immediately inspired and opened those pathways for me. Okay. So the tools basically, just look at everything in witchcraft as a key, and you're just trying to, all the doors are within you. Okay. All of the doors for everything magical that you want to do. All of the doorways are within you. They are not outside of you. Okay. So tools like tarot, like pendulums, like wands, like chalices, like cauldrons, like herbs, like crystals, they are all keys to doors to unlock those pathways within you. Okay? Everything's within you. The magic is within you. Divination is within you. The messages, tapping into the messages, that pathway is within you. Okay? I cannot stress that enough. And everything that you use in your witchcraft practice are just keys to opening up the doorways to those paths within you. All right, off my soapbox as far as that is concerned. Let's move on to, these are some other things that I get asked a lot about. Okay, shuffling, pulling cards. Traditional shuffle, just like a deck of cards, okay? And for those who are listening, you're going to hear some weird shit. I'm going to shuffle, okay? So, traditional shuffle, then you pull your cards by energy. So you can fan them all out and then kind of wave your hand over them. And then like, oh, you're going to pull this one. Oh, you're going to pull this one. Oh, you're going to pull this one. And you're moving your hand over the fanned out cards. Very traditional if you're having your cards read by another person or if you're doing a card reading for another person. Very traditional. Then there's the traditional shuffle. Okay. And you can shuffle like a deck of cards. Some tarot readers out there listening right now, I know y'all are having a heart attack. You're like, did she just duffle like it's a fucking poker deck? I did. I shuffled like it was a poker deck. I don't even know if I just said that right. I think I said duffled. Yeah, I do. I shuffle mine like it's a poker deck. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you can do a traditional shuffle and then you can cut the deck into however many piles and just pull the top card of every deck. That's another way you can do a traditional shuffle and then, just cut the deck, stack it on top or whatever, and then just pull all of your cards from the top of the deck. And then you can do the chaotic shuffle. You can do which is what I've come to love. Okay. I just learned about the chaotic shuffle, which I'm doing it as I'm talking right now for those just listening. I love doing the chaotic shuffle in my weekly Patreon. I learned about the chaotic shuffle and then you pull whatever cards pop out. Okay, that's what you read. I learned about it on the TikToks. I love it. I've embraced it wholeheartedly. And it's because I'm actually not concentrating on any type of question to where I'm just sitting here shuffling. I did have one come up though, if y'all heard that. So let's just, out of curiosity, we're just having fun today. We have the Hanged Man reversed, which leads me into another thing. All right. And y'all are going to get like a 2-for-1. I'm just going to keep shuffling. Reversed cards. I get asked a lot about reverse cards. And this was a really good part of the conversation within the Inked Spirit Coven in our sacred space this week, was reverse cards. And a lot of witches don't read them, or a lot of readers don't read them at all. They don't. I actually got 3. That's 7 of cups, you guys. That keeps coming up. A lot of people don't read reverse cards at all. So they just, if the card comes up reversed, or they only shuffle in a way to where the cards don't ever come up reversed, or if they do come up reversed, they just flip them around, just read the upright meaning. That's fine. If you don't want to read reverse cards, don't read reverse cards. Okay? The traditional way, what is generally taught, or what's generally said about reverse cards, is that the reversed card means the opposite of the card meaning. And I hate that. Here we go with another tarot without the bullshit. I hate that. I do not read reverse cards as the opposite of the meaning. And here's why. There are 78 cards in this deck, okay? And there is everything from death and destruction to getting your heart's desires, and everything's going to work out beautifully, and every message in between. So I feel like if the message for that card is supposed to be the opposite of that card, then another card that means that will be the one that pops up. So I do not read the reverse like that. Now, what I do read is I read the reversed as blocked energy. So in this reading, this little 3-card reading I ended up doing, I got the Hangman reversed, and then I got Strength upright and the 7 of Cups upright. Okay. So to me, it tells me that the Hanged Man reversed, the Hangman energy is there, okay? And the Hangman energy is all about needing to flip your perspective, okay? You're kind of maybe looking at things wrong, but you need to flip it. You're kind of feeling in limbo right now, but the way out of that is to flip your perspective, okay? The fact that it's reversed is telling me that you are hesitant to flip your perspective. You are blocking yourself from flipping your perspective. You're staying rigid at the moment within that, whatever it is however you're viewing something or however you're seeing it. Okay. So that's how I read reverse cards. I also read all of the reverse cards. So in order to see how to unblock or reverse cards are blocked energy of that card. So yes, the Hangman is the Hangman. That's what came up. That's the message. If I were doing this reading for somebody, that's the message. You need to flip your perspective. You're hesitant. You're blocked in flipping your perspective. So then it's like, okay, how do you remove this blockage? So you either look at the other reversed cards. That's what I've always done to give you answers, or the immediate card. So the card that immediately followed this is the Strength card, which is all about having strength, but having it with grace. So it's asserting your will. It's doing what you need to do, but doing it in a beautifully graceful way. Okay. So maybe the reason that the Hanged Man, you're unable to flip your perspective is because you haven't figured out how to do it gracefully yet. So instead of doing it just balls to the wall open, you're like, let me figure out how to do it gracefully. Or you're wanting to flip, you're wanting to come out, you're wanting to get out of this limbo feeling by going balls to the wall. And now the Strength card is like, hey, just calm down a little bit. You have the inner strength, but let's figure out how to portray that in a much nicer, calmer way instead of just roaring out. Okay. And then the 7 of Cups, just for this lovely little reading, was upright. It tells me that you have the answer you need, but there's just fog. That's been coming up so much. So you have the answer you need, but there's just like a fog in front of you. You can't see the answer in front of you because of the fog. So you need to have some clarity. Maybe meditate, ask for signs, look for signs from the universe, whatever. But however you would gain clarity, journaling maybe, because the answer's sitting right in front of you. You just can't see it right now. So that's the little bonus 3-card reading that I guess was happening during this as well. Didn't plan that, but that was fun. But that's how I read reversed cards. Okay. So if you read reverse cards as the opposite, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not trying to shame anyone for the way that they do or don't read tarot. This, like I said at the beginning, this episode is my opinion. This is what I've been doing for 15 years. Of reading tarot. This is what works for me. It will lead to, it leads to some chaos. Like I've said in my Patreon videos, because every week for the second tier of my paid Patreon, I do an energetic reading. So I pull 3 cards plus an oracle card, and I give my interpretation of the energy for the week. And I was telling them in Sacred Space this week that every single week when I am done, with the video and it's uploading to Patreon, I look up the 3 cards because there's still just a part of me that's like I haven't actively read tarot for people, like human beings, in probably 12 years, 12 or 13 years. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, was I way off in left field about that? Like, was I very wrong? And then I have to stop myself, because if that's the message the message is from me. So whatever that card said to me was the message I was supposed to be receiving. And a perfect example, and I think I may have told this one in my psychic journey episode. If I did, I apologize if you've heard this story before. If you have not heard this story, I will tell it very quickly. I can very distinctly remember a British gentleman who came and visited me at my shop in South Carolina. He was visiting some friends, and he came in to have his cards read. And I was doing a reading for him. And I do remember it was the Knight of Wands card, which is weird because that's the one that was just in that zombie tarot, right? Yeah, it was the Knight of Wands cards flipped up. I think it was the Knight of Wands. Anyway, that card flipped over, and immediately I looked at him and said, "Oh, are you gay?" And that was it. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get sued. Like, because I don't have a filter when I read cards either. So, because I allow the messages to flow. So whatever pops into my head comes out of my mouth. It is not for me to judge the message. It is not for me to sanitize the message. It is not for me to try and interpret the message. My job as a tarot reader when I'm reading cards for other people is to give the message in whatever form I am given it. I download it or whatever form it comes to me. And I'm to give you the message in its purest form. So I turn off my filter when I read cards. So the minute that card flipped over, for whatever reason, I said, "Oh, are you gay?" And I said, "Oh my God, that's not even that. There's no gay card in the tarot. There's no card that says I'm a gay man or you're a gay man. There's nothing. And that card does not mean that." But I flipped that card over, I said it, and he just started laughing. And I said, oh my God, here it is. Like, he's going to ask for a refund. I'm going to give him his refund. And hopefully he won't sue me for whatever reason. And he started laughing. He was laughing, and he said, I have my cards read every month. He said, I've been doing this for years. I love having my cards read. And I said, okay. And he goes, no one has ever picked up on that. He's like, how did you know that? And I'm like, so you are gay? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh. He's like, how did you know that? I was like, I don't know. He goes, is that a gay card? I was like, no, there's no gay card of the tarot. And he's like, but how did you know that? I was like, I don't know. That's just what came in. When that card flipped over, that's what came in. So when I read cards even on Patreon, I go and double check afterwards, which I should stop doing, because even if the card's in front of me, if someone else is like, that's not what that card means, that's not what that card means, it doesn't matter. That's the message that card triggered, that card opened, that's the pathway that card opened within you. Okay. So you have to go with it. Okay. Even if you may get sued. It's fun. That was so fun. One day I'll have to go back and listen to like all my podcast episodes and see what stories I have told you all. And then one day I'll have to tell you, because I had some pretty crazy things in tarot readings back in the day. But yeah, the message is coming from you. That's the biggest takeaway from this episode. Just some other things. Also for me, upright cards will tell a story and give additional info, reverse same. So as soon as I do like a big card reading, when I would read cards for other people, all of the reverse cards tell a story to me, as well as all of the upright cards tell a story as well. The number of major arcana cards versus minor arcana cards also gives you additional info within the reading. And then the repetition of numbers also gives you additional info. So if you end up having, like 3 7s on the board, on the, in your reading. Then you can pull the 7 card from the major arcana. That's going to give you even more information. Okay. This is why memorization of just the card meaning, you lose so much by just memorizing the card and then regurgitating its meaning from a book. You lose the ability to trust yourself and trust the information that you're being given. Whether it's from yourself, your higher self, your guides, whatever connection you have. Okay. Memorization limits you so much. So the last piece of advice is when you go to do tarot readings, whether you're doing them for yourself, you're doing them online, you're doing them for other people, you just have to open yourself and say the thing. Say that whatever comes into mind, okay, say it. Just recently, within my paid Patreon, I struggled, and it's in the video. It was a few weeks ago. I'm openly struggling because the message that I'm getting, it's the downfall of a leader. That's the message I'm getting. And I get this message and I'm like, I can't say that out loud because what if it doesn't happen? Okay. Because I was trying to sanitize and interpret the message. As I got the message, and instead of just spitting it out, I was trying to interpret the message. And sometimes it's not for you to interpret. It's for you to get the message out, get it out on paper, get it out to the human if you're reading for another person. Get the message out, then they can interpret it, okay? So I flipped over this card. The message that I received is the downfall of a leader. And you can watch me struggle in this video, in this Patreon video, because I'm like, I can't say that. And I'm hearing from, my higher self, my guides, like, say it. And I'm like, I can't say it. What if it's not true? Because in my mind, I'm thinking downfall of a leader. That's the message I received. But I'm trying to interpret it. I'm trying to sanitize it. And I'm thinking, oh, that has to be the president or a king somewhere in some country. And oh my gosh, but what if that doesn't happen? Then I look like a crazy person, because like that didn't happen. It was this big world event that I thought I was reading about because I was trying to interpret it. Well, that reading would have been either on a Sunday or a Monday. That Wednesday, okay, the metaphysical community had a downfall of a leader. One of the largest metaphysical retailer closed its doors. Been open for 12, 13, 14 years. So that tarot reading, the message I received was downfall of a leader. That is the message. 2 to 3 days later, the largest metaphysical retailer online shut its doors. That is the downfall of a leader. Okay. So don't interpret, right? Get it all out. Allow the message, open yourself up, allow the message to come through. If you're reading for yourself, write it down. Write down the messages you're getting verbatim. Okay. Then you can go back and interpret it, or you can just leave it be and see what the fuck happens. Because never in my mind would I thought that business would have ever closed. And they did. And the minute that I received notification from people around me that they had put a thing up on their website saying they were closed, I literally sat in silence for probably 20 minutes. My husband thought something was wrong with me because the first thing that came to mind was how that came up in my tarot reading for the Patreon people that week. And I was like, oh my God, that is crazy shit. So don't interpret it. Sometimes it's best to just write it down verbatim, whatever message you get. Even if you're like, that's crazy, I don't know what that means, or that doesn't mean that for that card. Just take it anyway, because the message is coming from you. It is not coming from the cards. And this is why memorization just cuts you so short, okay? Allow yourself fully to read openly. And that's the fun of tarot, okay? So that's my episode for today. For the paid Patreon members this week, I'm going to be going into a few more of my tips, such as my favorite cleansing methods, my favorite spread, and then Oracle versus Tarot. I'll give you my opinion on that. That's in the paid Patreon tier. It's patreon.com/inkedgoddesscreations. And the $5 tier is what gets you the bonus content for every podcast episode. It also gets you a shout out. So I want to say thank you to my new paid members this week. I have Zachary, thank you. Joan, thank you. And Katrina, thank you for being new paid Patreon members and for supporting me as a witchy content creator. Yay! And then just as another little repeat, if you like the way I teach and the way that I portray information and give information out, then please join the Inked Spirit Coven. We would love to have you in there, but you can go through the lesson archives. You have 4.5 years of lesson archives, but in there is a Tarot 101 class with a cheat sheet. So I did kind of summarize the cards in just a few key words for the major arcana. I think it's just the major arcana. It might be the minor arcana too. You guys, it was like 3 years ago, But anyway, you get that PDF. So I still want you to, that's another thing that I should probably throw in here. So hopefully you're still listening, like main people. Learn the cards, Like you can still learn the cards, like the 7 of Cups, read it in the little book that comes, you know what I mean? So if you're learning that way, because people learn in different ways. I'm not trying to tell you don't study tarot, but once you find the deck that works for you, it makes it a hell of a lot easier, okay? So when I was doing the Tarot 101 class, which just goes over the basics of tarot, the history of tarot, how to read, there is a tarot cheat sheet because you're going to start associating keywords with things, Like I know that the Strength card is strength, but with grace. The Queen of Swords, like I was talking about earlier, that's the bitch card for me because each queen has her own journey and how that journey has molded her. And for the Queen of Swords, she done gotten cold. So she's the bitch. So that's what I mean by like, I do have a cheat sheet in that class because you're going to start just keywords here and there. Like I know 7 of Cups is like fog/clarity. Okay. Hanged Man, limbo/flip your perspective. So that's what the cheat sheet's good for. And then we are doing tarot magic later this year, which is using the tarot deck and using tarot symbolism for things other than divination, okay? Using them in spells, using them in rituals, using them in meditation. So that's what we're going to be doing later this year. You can learn more about the Inked Spirit Coven at inkedspirit.com. I would love to have you join. This episode is a big one today. I had fun. I hope you all did too. You'll have to let me know down in the comments, especially if you listen on Spotify or YouTube. If you do watch this on YouTube, actually, I'm not going to lie, you guys. My husband's taking the trash out. And I can see him taking the trash out to the dumpster right here. And just for a second, it was just that moment of like, oh, because he still does that to me after 26 years of marriage. Anyway, yes, if you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in the comments, how this landed for you. Do you read tarot? Do you not read tarot? Do you read reversed? I'd love to actually hear that. How do you read reversed? How did you get into tarot? And then for the paid Patreon members, definitely, we can have a whole big conversation in there, underneath that one. Or hit me up on Instagram, which is at Ink Goddess Creations. That's where I hang out. So when this little soundbite video goes up, you can always comment in the comments there. So I would love to hear your takeaways from this episode. But I want to thank you all for being here, for listening, for giving me a platform to teach and share my crazy knowledge. Thank you for being here, and I will see you all next week. Bye. If you're looking for a magical community where you can just be yourself, check out my Inked Spirit Coven. The Coven is an online learning circle for eclectic witches who want to learn new witchcraft practices and how to easily incorporate magic into their daily lives, all while being supported on their personal spiritual journey. And you'll have me as your magical mentor, sharing my knowledge, answering questions, and facilitating the online community. Head to inkedspirit.com to learn more and join. And if unique witchcraft supplies made by witches for witches is just what you need, head to my store, inkgoddesscreations.com, to see what we have to enhance your magical practice. We also have the Ink Goddess Creations box, a monthly subscription of magic mail filled with exclusive items that fit a magical theme. Head to the site to see this month's theme and sneak peeks.